My name is Lawrence Hill, and I'm here on June 18, 2012 to receive the Medal of Distinction and to address the graduating class at Huron University College. I didn't really know that it would be possible to make a living as a writer, but the only career, the only work that I envisaged was being a writer. I had absolutely no desire to do anything else except write, but I wasn't aware yet that it would be possible to make a living from it. So I knew I might have to have other work. But the only career, the only major passion working-wise that I had, even in high school, was to write. Well, I sometimes joke, self-mockingly, that I'm the only Canadian novelist I know who's alive who's got an undergraduate degree in economics. Although I'm told that Stephen Leacock, his degree was in economics as well. I chose economics really because I went to university in the 70s and the economy in the world and in Canada was still booming. People weren't worried about jobs the way they are now. I was pretty confident that I'd find work to support myself. And I wasn't obsessed in the middle of the 70s when I started university about the link between my studies at university and my job opportunities after. I just wanted to expand my horizons and learn, which was actually a lovely privilege to have. So I studied economics because I was the son of two sociologists. The last thing I wanted to do was hear more about human rights and sociology. I'd had that out of the years by the time I was 17. So I just wanted to break free and do something else. I'm interested in social issues. I'm interested in economic, macroeconomic issues. And I was kind of attracted to the mixture between social analysis and the mathematical rigor, that economics offered. And so it was actually very interesting to me, even though I didn't choose to or ever dream of becoming an economist. I actually enjoyed the study of economics and did quite well in it and found myself very interested in it. And I'm still interested in economic issues, but I happen to be a novelist. Well, I had all sorts of mentors, although we didn't really use the term back then. I mean, mentor is more a term that you hear bandied about a lot in the last 20 or so years. But well, my parents, of course, were mentors because my mother read to us religiously every night. She would read poetry, and there's nothing better, really. There's nothing more beautiful and more playful than nonsense poetry. Nonsense poetry, for people of any age, including children, is such a joy and so playful, and it really kind of inculcates a sense of, well, the absurd, and also a sense of language. And so my mother would read Dr. Seuss or all sorts of other poets and writers to us when we were children. My father made up stories rather than telling them, and he was a great oral storyteller. I had a track coach when I was a boy. I was a serious runner, and he was a reporter with the Toronto Star and a frustrated writer of books. I guess he'd always wanted to be a novelist and never quite had that orientation to make it happen. And so he would take me in to see the Toronto Star newsroom as a teenager, and he was the first professional writer I met, and he was a great mentor to me because he was the first writer who earned his living through writing that I spent a lot of time with, and this was as a young boy from 12 to 16 or so, so he influenced me profoundly. His name was David Steen. So those are some of my early mentors, my parents and my track coach. A. Milne, I'd often hear, my mother loved a poem called Disobedience. James, Morrison, Weatherby George Dupree took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. And the poem goes on like this, about a mother who gets lost because she had the foolishness to start wandering around town without the advice of her 3-year-old son. And so, of course, it's a lovely, crazy, absurd, silly, playful poem, and it really kind of teaches the joy of language. So, yeah, that stuff's great. Well, that really leads to something I'll speak about a bit today, and leads to a passion I've always felt. I feel that one of the richest things that my life has brought me, one of the things that has been most beneficial to me emotionally, intellectually, I'll say with a lowercase s, spiritually, has been to be a volunteer. And there are 3 sort of primarily forms of volunteerism that I'm involved with. I speak to prisoners in federal penitentiaries about books and literature as a volunteer. I've traveled several times to Africa with Crossroads International to get involved with community development projects. And I first went with Crossroads to Niger in 1979. I was still a university student at Université Laval in Quebec City, and I had the opportunity to go work on a very basic cultural exchange, a grassroots community development project. Really all we were doing was planting trees that summer in a region where tree planting was critical because it was meant to hold the roots in soil that might otherwise be washed away in rainstorms, soil that was at risk of becoming like the desert in the expanding Sahara Desert. So in a critical transition zone between the desert and arable land, you need to plant trees to hold onto the little good soil you have in some African countries such as Niger. And so I went to do this work, and I was lucky to be involved with an NGO that wasn't about saving people or telling them how to live, but about working with local African partners in tandem with projects that they had elaborated and that they were governing and running. And it taught me a lot of humility about how to go as a Canadian into other countries and not be too pretentious about the help that you think you can give to people whom you don't even understand yet. And so that experience was life-altering. I went back twice more to work in African countries, also in Mali and in Cameroon on different occasions, also with Crossroads International. And I've been a volunteer with them ever since. So I've been a volunteer now with Crossroads for about 35 years. And I'm now their honorary patron. And really, it opened up the world of writing to me because all of my books have touched down on Africa in one way or another. It opened up a personal connection to Africa, which I guess I was longing for, having African ancestry, distant as it is in my own family tree. It had huge resonance for me, and as usual with volunteer work, it gave me far more than I ever gave. And I guess what I tell students is to try to think broadly about the things they're going to do in life and not to be so focused on the dollar sign and on the job and on the postgraduate degree that they can't think about community engagement, whether that's with a charitable group down the street from where you live, whether it's in Yukon or whether it's across some ocean. You grow so much and you gain so much when you take time to be a volunteer. And you learn what it is to be loved by people for the gift you're giving of your time and your presence. So it's a great thing to do. Maybe my son on Father's Day a few years ago gave me the Best Dad of the Year award. That was pretty good. I have been very blessed with some honors. I suppose one of the really incredible ones was to receive the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. I suppose that was particularly satisfying because it came from an international community throughout the British Commonwealth, and so it allowed me to do something that's so very difficult for Canadian writers, and that is enter foreign markets. It's so difficult for a Canadian writer to enter the American or the French or the British or the Japanese market. And unfortunately, the hard truth of the matter is that you're almost not going to enter those markets unless you win a prize. And it's crass and it's venal, but many publishers in other countries just won't be interested if you're an unknown quantity unless you can back it up with some prize you've earned. And so winning the Commonwealth Writers' Prize allowed me, really for the first time, to enter the world of publishing outside Canada, and for that I'll remain forever grateful. Well, and I know that Huron College is all about broad-based liberal arts education. My mother went to Oberlin College in the United States, which was the first college to graduate women and blacks, I believe, in the United States. And she and my father both pursued liberal arts educations in the United States before they met and married and came to Canada to live forever after the day after they married. I have nothing but respect for people who know from the age of 12 or 13 or 15 exactly that they want to become an industrial engineer, or a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist. And we need those people profoundly in our world, and I need them and use them, and we all do. But I also would encourage any student of any background, even one who chooses to pursue a professional career, that expanding your world through studying a number of things that you won't necessarily pursue later as a professional will expand your world, will open up your eyes, will perhaps help you learn some other languages and see the world with more maturity and wisdom. It's a fantastic foundation for the movement through life, and it equips you in so many ways to connect with and relate to and understand people. And so there is a danger in being so focused on your post-secondary education that you're thinking only about how it will translate into a salary or a job or another job. I think that there's still great value in thinking about expanding your universe, your own character, your own understanding of the world through a broad-based liberal arts education. Well, what I am going to say and what I am saying today to the students graduating today is, first of all, congratulations. You know, you've been on a tremendous path. I'm sure you've worked, each of you, very hard to get to the point you are today with, I'm sure, considerable sacrifices and hard work on your part, and of course on the part of those who've supported you and helped bring you along to this point, whether it's your parents or educators, teachers who've inspired you through all points of your academic careers. I would also say, just as I would emphasize the value of a liberal arts education, I would emphasize the value of a broad vision of society after graduating. And by all means, pursue your passions. If you want to become a dentist or a social worker or a bus driver or a teacher or a doctor, go for it. But try to think about how you'll engage in the world of travel. And when I say travel, I mean traveling through life, in meeting people and connecting with them and giving to them as you go forward. It's not just about the end product. In the end, we all meet the same sad fate. It's about how you live along the journey. It's about how well you travel. And one of the things about traveling, literally traveling to places that you don't belong, that your eyes open wider and you're more receptive to life around you when you're first setting foot in a foreign land. And I think we should look at life in the same way, to try to travel each day as if we were experiencing another place, and keep our eyes that open always. So I would say be open to travel in every sense of the word, be open to volunteerism and community engagement, and try to keep broadening your life as you move forward.